Hello, I'm Martin Chuck, inventor of the Tour Striker Training Club, and in this video I want to show you how to maximize the benefit training with your Tour Striker. You know, the Tour Striker is designed with an elevated leading edge. This face has been raised from the sole of the golf club so that it makes you learn how to strike the golf ball with forward shaft lean. Really critical, that forward shaft lean and shallow angle of attack. So let's get started using your Tour Striker. The first things you want to do with the Tour Striker is understand that all good players touch the ground. The best players touch the ground in the same place where they want to pretty much every time. Now, as a newbie getting initiated with the Tour Striker, I don't expect you to touch the ground perfectly every time. In fact, you've got some forgiveness built into the Tour Striker. It's got a really rounded leading edge. So to get started, let's not even hit a golf ball first. What's important to know is this is a club you can use on a range mat. You can use it on closely mown turf like this, but be careful on a range mat. If the range mats are really fluffy, you can get a false sense of security with that because sometimes you can compress the fibers too much and actually scoop the ball off a really fluffy range mat. So be mindful of that if you're on fluffy range mats. So how to get started with a Tour Striker? The first thing you want to do is go ahead and take that rounded leading edge right there and let it touch the ground with forward shaft lean. So what I'm going to do is not hit a ball yet. I'm going to take this club and just let it land on the ground. And that may disrupt the grass a little bit. You know, I'm on a Bermuda grass down here in Florida at the moment, and that is taking sort of a divot, but that's not cutting a divot like the leading edge of a wedge might or an 8 or a 9 iron. See, a lot of people are terrified of hitting the ground really hard with their golf clubs, and what the Tour Striker does is it gives you a little bit of that ability to touch the ground with that forward shaft lean without the fear of really laying the sod over the ball, hitting a really chunky or fat shot. So once you've made some little swings and you've touched the ground a series of times, and the shaft's been leaning when you touch the ground, let's go ahead and put a ball in place. Now what I want you to be aware of with this Tour Striker, we've got a Tour Striker pitching wedge and a Tour Striker 7 iron. And I've got the Tour Striker pitching wedge right here. It's got a little X on it on the bottom groove. See, the X marks the spot. That's where you're going to hit the golf ball with the Tour Striker. The idea is that when we set up to hit this, you can see the X. Go ahead and aim the X at the target. And keep in mind when you get started, we're just going to get started with short little 30 to 40 yard shots right now. But the goal here with this club is to take the X and get that X closer to the ground. Now think about how you're going to do that. To get the X closer to the ground, does it make sense to put your weight back on your right foot? Doesn't make sense at all. Makes sense to put your weight on your left foot. It makes sense to get your handle a little bit forward. And when your weight's left and the handle's forward, you're now in a position of the best ball strikers in the world right here. Handle forward, shaft leaning, strength and loft. You see, swing speeds doesn't always produce the same distance. I swing a 7 iron about 88, 86 miles an hour. The tour average is about 90, 92 miles an hour. Now, the best players actually de-loft the face. They have a stronger dynamic lofted impact, and that's what I'm trying to teach you with the Tour Striker, is how to de-loft the face properly with a shallow angle of attack, not mashing down on a golf ball, but with forward lean to really hit those compressed, penetrating iron shots. So getting started, you can see the little X on there, and what we're going to try to do in these short little shots is feel as though we can get that X closer to the ground as we pass through impact. So there's a little pitch shot out there where that had forward shaft lean. That was a ball that was elevated because I took that elevated leading edge and I got it closer to the ground, which actually presents loft to the ball. That elevated leading edge gets closer to the ground, that loft gets below the equator of the golf ball, the ball goes up. Now, if I try to help the ball off the ground, the result of that would be something that would top a golf ball. If I hang back and I try to help the ball off the ground like so many club players and amateurs do, this is what the Tour Striker is going to do. We're going to just top the ball along. Now, the interesting thing about that is if I took another golf club here, and I'll just take my pitching wedge. Here's my standard pitching wedge, and I'm going to hit a little shot with my standard pitching wedge now. I can cheat this. I can pick this ball off the ground and get some sort of result right there. But the point is, that's not a compressed golf shot. In order to really compress a golf shot, we've got to get that shaft leaning on the golf ball. We have to get our weight on our lead foot, in my case my left foot, so that that same little swing speed right there produces a penetrating ball flight where the ball is crisply struck and it's under control. So the way you're going to do your best with a Tour Striker, start off slow. Go ahead and let's get the ball down here. You see the X in the bottom groove right there? Let's feel like our eyes are resting on the golf ball, but in your mind, you know what your intent is. Your intent is to take this X and get it close to the ground, all the way up into about a half finish right here into a pitch shot. And notice when I hit these shots, I'm not trying to pound down, because hitting down, every circle's got down in it. There's down built into everything. Every swing's got down into it. The key isn't to mash down, the key is to have our down in the correct place. That's what's really, really vital. So again, we've got our X. Let's feel in these little half shots that we can get this X closer to the ground. That's going to get that leading edge under the equator. The ball's going to go up and you're going to hit some crisp pitch shots. When you feel you have command over that behavior, that little pitch shot, let's go ahead and let the swing get a little bit longer. So I'll hit a couple longer ones with my pitching wedge here. So when you feel you've got command over the shorter shots, go ahead and let things get a little bit longer. And when you feel a sense of breakdown, when you go from having success with these short little shots to longer swings, if there's a moment in there as you incrementally get longer and longer in your swing and there's a breakdown, go back to that common denominator of success. Work on that and incrementally push it a little bit until it breaks down again. What you're doing is you're training your body. You're teaching your body how to deliver the club with forward shaft lean, that shallow angle of attack that really compresses a golf ball. Now I'm going through this with a Tour Striker pitching wedge at the moment. Some of you better players maybe purchase the Tour Striker 7-iron. You can do the same things with the 7-iron. The 7-iron obviously is for fuller shots. The pitching wedge is more for uninitiated golfers, the newer golfers, or maybe the better golfers that really want to hone in their pitching game. So once you understand this relationship, I really don't care how you do it, because impact is personal, okay? It's not about your swing style or shape, it's about how you internally feel this rhythm to get this tool to work. It's a simple training aid. Make it work, lean the shaft, figure out how to get that X closer to the ground when you do it, and you've got the impact alignments of the best players. Now let's go ahead and hit some fuller shots with the Tour Striker 7-iron. Okay, so maybe you got the Tour Striker pitching wedge or the 7-iron. Either way, it's the same general idea, but let's hit some shots with the 7-iron. And you can apply this to the pitching wedge and the rest of the clubs in your bag as well. Now, the key with great strikers, they get to impact with the handle slightly ahead of the club head. They de-loft the club slightly. They've got a shallow angle of attack. You're saying, well, Martin, that's all great, but how am I going to do it? Well, like we got started with the pitching wedge, let's get started a similar way with the 7-iron. What I want you to do is take a look down at the face of that elevated leading edge, and take a look at that X right there. And ask yourself, how would you get that X closer to the ground? Would you be back here in your trail foot? I don't think so. You'd put your weight forward, you'd put your handle of the golf club ahead, because that's the only way the X is going to get closer to the ground. And from there, go ahead and make some little half swings. And feel some mobility in your wrists as the club starts to gather momentum and as you start to go into a little bit of an extended finish. Now, really important to understand this. I want the handle ahead of the golf ball at impact, but I don't want you to feel like you're dragging your hands toward the target. The golf club is swung. It's a slinging motion. It's a blend of components that freewheels through impact. And that's what's neat about the Tour Striker. Nobody even knows you're practicing with it. But you're building some feels on how to get your body in a position to get into that impact alignment. So once you make some warm-up swings and you want to put a golf ball down, once again, start off with some little half swings, what feel like 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock little swings, and put your eyes on the ball, rest them on the ball, but you want to, again, feel how you're going to have a nice shallow angle of attack with forward lean to hit little shots towards your target. So That motion touched the ground, no doubt about it, but I'm not trying to pound down on the golf ball. How do you get the X closer to the ground? Well, your weight's got to be left, your handle's got to be forward. That's the critical components of taking this elevated leading edge and getting the shaft leaning forward so that elevated leading edge gets below the equator of the ball and you get that penetrating trajectory. So when you feel confident that you can make some half swings and get the golf ball to elevate with reasonable control, and for most of you, take some time on this, hit 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 balls. It shouldn't take that long for you to get the feeling of this. Once you do that, then break into some full swings. The same thing, eyes rest on the golf ball, your mind is in your body, you're trying to feel what's it going to take for you to take that X on that club head, get it closer to the ground without mashing down a whole lot on the ball. We don't want that. We want a shallow angle of attack. My great mentor, famous ball striker Mo Norman said, bacon strips, not pork chops, meaning that he didn't want to see big divots. He wanted a nice shallow post exit here after the strike where there's just a little bit of divot but lots of forward shaft lean. Now, how do you do that? Well, there's some interesting things. Once you recognize to get that X closer to the ground, where does your weight have to be? Well, it has to be forward, it has to be left. Where does the handle have to be? It has to be forward, it has to be left. Well, to shallow out the swing bottom, there's a couple interesting things that I want you to be aware of. You know, if you were going to be the last second guy, you're going to take that shot in basketball, you were unguarded and you were going to make a three-pointer. And for any Europeans watching this, I apologize if you don't understand this basketball reference. But if you're going to catch a basketball, the first thing you do is get into the ground a little bit so your body's ready to be athletic before you could jump and use your arms to try to make that, in my case, miss, but in most cases maybe make that last second three-point shot. Now, the body responds by getting into the ground so it can come out of the ground. Anything athletic is something where we're using the ground for leverage, and golf is no different. So the thing that shallows out the swing bottom that's really critical is this first motion in the downswing where we feel like we can get into the ground. I'm getting into the ground just like I'm about to catch a basketball, so I can push off the ground to shallow out my swing bottom. Where's my weight? It's clearly left. Where's the handle? It's forward. That X on the face of the tour striker, that's getting closer to the ground. That's what gives you that strong, dynamic loft that really compresses the golf ball. That's why my swing speed makes the ball go a long way. I'm not crazy strong, it's just the application's successful because I've got the right dynamic loft and the right impact alignments. So hitting bigger shots, what I want you to be aware of, eyes on the ball, mind in the body. Now we're starting to put some building blocks in place here. And remember, if it gets overwhelming, take a step back to the smaller stuff and then build on that success. So eyes in the ball, mind in the body, and where is that X? It's going to get closer to the ground as we extend powerfully through a golf ball right there and hit a strong shot. That speed produced a lot of distance because of strong dynamics. The dynamics of getting into the ground and pushing off the ground. Now to elaborate on that thought 1 second, let's talk about what address and extension is. If I address a golf ball, I am flexed over to the golf ball. If I hold the club parallel to my body right here and I bend over, that club is basically now between my legs. This is my address position. Well, in my finish position, I'm not over here in this forward flex still. My body is pushed off the ground into this full extension. Really critical for you guys and gals out there to understand that it's not about, quote, keeping your head down, because that has made more golfers stay poor golfers than any other tidbit of information ever. Now, I agree, we don't want to be bouncing up out of a golf shot, but we want to understand the sequence of how the body turns, goes from forward flex to extension, and then takes on side bend on both sides. So walking through that slowly. At address, I'm in a forward flex, really important. This is something that everybody just simply does. You basically bend over to a golf ball. Sometimes I see people with too much knee bend and too vertical a posture. If you're gonna make a mistake here, if there is a mistake here, let's get too bent over. Our arms hang down from the shoulders. This is my forward flexed address position. Now, as I'm hitting a golf ball, I've got to go into an extended backswing position, meaning that my left shoulder's turning down, My body is extending. I'm taking on side bend. There's no side bend between my left thigh and my left side at address. In a backswing, the down the line camera can see a big side bend right here. That's a big generator of power. And then here is my move where I'm grabbing the ground, I'm getting into the ground so I can push off the ground. That's really what it helps accelerate the golf club to powerfully hit a golf shot. And some of you might say, well, Martin, you know, I'm 70 years old, I'm 80 years old, can I do this? And I'll say, to a smaller degree, absolutely. If you can push on the ground, and if you can bend your knees and push on the ground, you're using ground forces. And that's really important to know that. As you're hitting a golf shot and you're working through this training aid, the Tour Striker, I want you to be very, very aware that we're trying to take that X, basically hit a golf ball without much of a divot really, and extend through a golf shot as tall as we can facing the target. Really important for your best golf. So let's go ahead and hit one more shot. We got the X there. Let's get the X close to the ground. Very shallow attack angle. Extend through the shot, and you're going to play some great golf. So this is Martin Chuck for the Tour Striker Training Club. I hope that short video walking through how to use the tool will help you intuitively learn on your own how to be your best ball striker. Thanks for your support, and remember, always go to tourstriker.com for new videos and more fun information.